Welcome back to Cheddar's Opening Bell. In 2020, the world found ways to rely even more so on technology. In 2021, shaping up to put more pressure on the tech sector. So how will young companies around the world step up? I'm joined now by Harry Briggs, managing partner at OMERS Ventures. Great to have you on this morning. I want to talk about some of the trends that you expect to see next year. How is fintech going to challenge the world of retail investing and corporate finance?
Hi, Jill. So look, it's been an amazing time for fintech the last few years, mainly focused on the retail side. So here in Europe, we've had companies like TransferWise on the FX side. We've had companies like Klarna on the loan side and Revolut, for example, in terms of the retail banking. But we actually think that the next part of finance to be disrupted is going to be the capital market side, because a lot of that really hasn't changed in 20 or 30 years. And it's, just looking at the IPOs that happened last year where the pricing was way out is a nice example of where, it needs to be modernized. And so we're seeing some really interesting developments on that side of fintech.
What about health tech? How has the pandemic accelerated trends in that sector?
Um, it's obviously accelerated everything. I mean, the cliche is that we've had, 5 or 10 years of development in a few months, largely, I think, thanks to the speeding up of regulation. But one of the key areas is obviously diagnostics. I think we've all realized that we need rapid diagnostics. We've had things like the Apple Watch or the Oura Ring for a long time, but now we also want diagnostics of what's inside our bodies, and we actually have an unannounced investment in that space around saliva diagnostics, for example. So I think that's one super interesting area. Another is there's obviously huge breakthroughs happening in AI, as you've seen. Another London-based company, DeepMind, with AlphaFold, understanding how proteins work and huge sort of potential to therefore speed up drug discovery. But more broadly, applying AI to speed up drug discovery is a massive area of potential in the next few years. And I think the years of it taking 10 or 15 years to find the next breakthrough drug are going to be a thing of the past. And I think we're going to have an amazing sort of fallow period amazing period of speeding that up as well.
Does the acceleration in this sector when it comes to healthcare, especially the digitizing of it, does that raise any concerns for you in terms of privacy, data security, especially with this really sensitive information?
Of course, yes. And look, there are other opportunities around that, of course, because that's always a bit of a race. And you're going to have bad actors competing with security specialists, but I think we've also got much better at anonymizing and detecting when data can be personally identified, and handling massive amounts of data in a kind of safe way. So I'm probably not as anxious about it as I would have been a couple of years ago.
This year also put this huge strain on the food supply chain. What are you watching in terms of technology and how it's going to change the way that we get food? And are any tech startups looking to mitigate these types of issues that we saw in the future?
Absolutely. So look, I mean, clearly this has been a big year for food delivery. Here in the UK, Ocado, which has been a kind of blazing the trail in supermarkets, going online, had an incredible year, and they're rolling out their technology across North America. And obviously, we've all seen DoorDash and Deliveroo and Uber Eats take off in a massive way. We actually have a company up in our portfolio that's just expanding into the US right now, which enables any restaurant to switch on all delivery channels at once and manage them much more efficiently. And they've grown like no company I've ever seen, I think, during the last few months. But I think in terms of the next wave beyond that, I think this year has really taught us that food security is also a challenge. And so companies like Infarm out of Germany that are making indoor farming more scalable, bringing fresh vegetables and herbs and so forth to where the consumers are, through clever LED lighting and just the right dosage of fertilizer and so on. I think they have the potential to really transform fresh, healthy food. Whilst of course there are also potential breakthroughs happening around clean meat, if you like, and whilst it's still not, I don't think, at the point where it can go really mainstream, the sort of growing of meat, that it's clearly on a trajectory to get there eventually and become sort of cost equivalent or roughly to meat. And obviously there's huge demand for that given all the environmental issues with meat.
And what can the U.S. expect to see from the European tech sectors next year?
Good question. I mean, look, Europe's had a really amazing few years. I've been a VC here for about 10 or 11 years. And, until a few years ago, there were only a few, modest successes in European tech. This year was the year that Spotify broke through 50 billion valuation and Adyen as well, a payments company. And I think people are really sitting up and noticing the number of unicorns coming out of Europe. So we're seeing a lot more US, North American investors. I mean, OMERS, my company, we opened here in Europe last year, having just been North America focused before. Sequoia has just opened an office in London as well. So there's a ton coming out, and that's driven by, there's an amazing amount of European talent, which until recently was sort of tempted to move to the Valley, but now, you can start a company anywhere. And we've seen amazing startups coming out of Romania or Estonia or Belgium, small countries where you wouldn't have thought the ecosystem was big enough, but nowadays the ecosystem is global. And I'd say particular areas, I mean, you've already touched on them. I think there's a lot of great health research in Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, Zurich, and so on, which is generating some amazing health startups. Clearly, London is still, Brexit permitting, an amazing hub for fintech. And we're also seeing, a lot happening, as you mentioned, around food and logistics. I think it'll be interesting to see how the regulatory climate evolves around drones, for example. But I think robotic delivery is coming, and we've seen it happening more and more in China now, and I think depending on the regulatory landscape, I think Europe could pioneer some of that as well.
All right, great insights. Harry Briggs, managing partner over at OMERS Ventures. Great to have you on this morning. Really appreciate it.